Time now is 7:40. After several days of deliberation, the jury convicted Ross Harris of all counts, including malice murder, 2 counts of felony murder, among with others. The announcement sent shockwaves across the country. Harris's 22-month-old son, Cooper, died back in 2014 when Harris left him inside his SUV for hours. And joining me this morning to discuss the case that has really been a talker across the country this morning is Page Pate, who you're an accomplished attorney, over 20 years of experience. Yeah. We saw the press conference right after the verdict was read, and his attorneys were emotional. A lot of people were not expecting that all of the counts to be convicted on him.
Right, I think that's fair. I mean, I watched a good portion of the trial. I was certainly expecting the jury to convict Ross Harris on the child cruelty counts, felony murder, but malice murder, that was a surprise to a lot of people.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the video. We know the jury had asked multiple times to see that surveillance video of him going back to his car. To allegedly put those light bulbs back there.
Right.
Do you think that that video was a key piece of evidence in this case?
It seemed to be. I think the jury was focused on whether or not Harris could have actually seen Cooper in the back seat when he went back to the car. And they saw it during the course of the trial, but probably when they got back in the room, they're in deliberations, maybe 1 or 2 folks said, look, I'm not entirely sure that he had the right vantage point, so they asked the judge to look at it again and couple that with the idea that they had the ability to actually see the SUV and put themselves where they think Ross Harris would have been when he put the light bulbs back in the car. So I think from their perspective, if they believed that Ross Harris could see Cooper, then he intended to kill him.
And also the fact he was in Chick-fil-A almost an hour earlier, and that, you know, he was there holding his son. He was talking to the people there at the restaurant, and then he just forgets his son. You know, that was also, you think that was also damaging evidence there as well?
I think for most people that's hard to believe, but the defense did a good job of getting an expert to come in and testify that some people can forget just that quickly. And we know from the other evidence in the case that Ross Harris was focused so much on the texting that it's quite possible he forgot about Cooper. So, you know, we know what the jury's verdict is. The case will go up on appeal, but at the end of the day, I don't know that we really know for sure that he actually intended to kill him.
And Leanna's testimony, she said that he was a good father, and, you know, although she said he was a man that she'd like to forget, it seems like that wasn't enough for him, right?
Right. A lot of people, I think, perceived her testimony as a little rehearsed and not really genuine. Her reactions during the entire case have been unusual, I think, to put it mildly. And so I think the jury had a hard time relating to her. I think there are some people on the jury who perhaps think she should have been charged as well. I don't see that happening, but clearly her testimony was not enough to convince the jury that Ross Harris should go free.
And his reaction in the courtroom, many have said, has been, you know, quiet, really not emotional. A few times it seemed a little stilted. Do you think he should have went to the stand? Do you think that was a mistake they made, that he didn't go and testify, or that's kind of a double-edged sword? You never know what he might say.
It's a great question, and all defense lawyers have to face that question in a trial like this, and it's so easy now to second-guess them. I don't want to do that. I'm certain they thought about it. At least they had a taped interview of Ross Harris that was played in trial. You don't always have that. So if the jury's going to hear your client speak during the interview, many times you say, that's enough, we're not going to put you on the stand. And if you put him on the stand, he's going to be cross-examined about the texting. His demeanor, his responses may not be what the jury's expecting. So absolutely, double-edged sword, could have helped him, could have hurt him.
Do you think that the jury just couldn't get around all the scandal that surrounded the case? I mean, day after day, the sexting, the apps, I mean, all of that. Do you think that just really damaged his credibility?
The prosecution won this case when they convinced the judge to allow them to introduce the sexting evidence at the same trial. If you're trying to convince a jury that your client basically made a mistake and there was an accident, they've got to like your client. And when you bring in all this sexting evidence, they did not like Ross Harris. They hated Ross Harris. So I think they were not willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. And with all of that other evidence, somebody's got to pay for Cooper's death. The jury thought it should be him. Yeah,
as we know, he is the victim in all of this. So, all right, Mr. Pate, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Of course, sentencing is December 5th, but we know that his attorney said they're going to go forward with an appeal, so we'll have to wait and see what happens with that.
Okay.
All right, time now is 7:45 this morning.